Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So today we have a build that utilizes Deadpool and Wolverine, Venom, Arnim Zola, which have historically not performed incredibly well. And that is because they're pretty linear. They have one really big play line, and yes, you could have a death on the last turn, but what happens if you're not able to draw into your Deadpool early, your kill conditions early? You're left with a rather lackluster deck list. And so with the recent buff to Wolverine, we wanted to dig in and try to find a deck where he worked well, and everything that I tried, he just kind of felt okay. He felt like an okay add, but he didn't really feel like he added that much. However, whenever you get a high roll with a Venom and an Arnim Zola playline, Wolverine can be really fun to play. You could have Wolverine if you destroy it with your Arnim Zola. That is going to have 3 Wolverines on the board, all of which are going to start getting buffed up if they get destroyed, and it can create some really cool and really fun playlines. But the Venom into Arnim Zola is a really inconsistent playline. So how do you make it consistent? How do you make it better? Well, what we ended up doing was kind of merging the two ideas between pull the Venom and the Arnim Zola, and the idea between the Death and the Wave style deck. So She-Hulk is phenomenal for this type of archetype. If you end up going with the traditional Death Wave style end game, then you can drop Wave as your only turn 5 card. That will allow you to do your She-Hulk and your Death, and one additional card if you've destroyed your cards enough on that last turn for a really big power push. But if not, you can also go with some really interesting playlines of using Arnim Zola on your Venom or your Wolverine, or sometimes even just your Death to get 24 power onto the board. And especially with how many Spider-Man lockdown we have, Arnim Zola carries his weight in spades here. Over the traditional kind of Taskmaster style role, he's able to take those and squeeze those cards into hard to reach locations, which I think earns him the slot, even though you can't do your Deadpool and your Taskmaster on the last turn. But as you notice, we are not going for an incredibly greedy deck. We don't have the Forge, the Hulkbuster, the things that you want to try to really target onto your Deadpool to make him just absolutely absurd. We are going for that consistency. We want a good sized Deadpool if we draw into him early, or if we don't, we want plenty of destruction targets. We want to be able to lean into our last turn power plays, be able to efficiently drop our power in a way that it will be enough to win. And so overall in my testing, I've enjoyed this deck list so incredibly much. I didn't think I was going to be able to find a Wolverine deck list that I thought was going to be consistent enough to feature. And then after testing several different builds, several different styles, I eventually found this kind of hybrid, and I have been really enjoying it. So with the brief deck explanation out of the way, we're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, first up we have Snappy, and in our starting hand we have our Killmonger, Venom, Death. We also get our Wolverine, so we'll be able to start destroying some cards. With this deck, we don't have a lot of solid early enablers, so we need to draw into our destruction tools and destroy at least, at minimum, 2 cards here to be able to get our value from this deck. And so that way we could do Wave on 5 into a Death and a She-Hulk, a Death and Venom, a Death, She-Hulk, and Venom. It just gives us a lot of play paths to be able to find our wins. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Deathlock onto Wolverine, hoping that he bounces over into Murder World, which would be beautiful. If he bounces over into Murder World, he'll get an immediate second trigger, making him just beautiful. And they have a Zabu into the Onslaught Citadel, which is less beautiful, but I get it. It's okay. I think we're going to destroy the Wolverine with a Carnage here. That's going to bump it up to 8. Next turn, we'll be able to do a Venom onto it, which will bump it up to 10. We could do an Arnim Zola to bump it up to 12 and generate 2 additional 10 power ones. Just so nutty how quickly this kind of started snowballing. It reminds me a lot of like a Deadpool, where it just like snowballs itself into something that is just kind of insane. We are going to go ahead and throw the Nova and the Venom onto the board. Depending on where this goes, this is going to give us a pretty decent sized Venom as well. Oh, yeah. And then we can do an Arnim Zola on the Venom to push it across the side. If it destroys Wolverine again, great, Wolverine will get buffed up even further. This is probably the highest roll for a Wolverine destruction that I think I have seen since I started playing this deck. Oh my gosh, this guy is going to be massive. Please don't go into Onslaught Citadel. We want to keep, oh, beautiful. We want to keep this good times rolling. We have 22 power in the Murder World right now. Now, sadly, we don't have another really good destruction tool besides the Arnim Zola here. And on our last turn here, we have a couple of different cards we can draw into. Depending on how many cards this destroys, we do destroy the Venom. He bumps over into the Onslaught Citadel where he is safe. He destroys the Deathlock, becoming a 19 power card. That reduces our death by 2, so it is now 4. We are not, if we draw into She-Hulk, we will not be able to do both. They use a Shang-Chi, which then helps us with our death even further. It bounces our Wolverine over into Limbo. What in the world? Oh my gosh. They do use Enchantress on their Red Skull and their Typhoid Mary. We know that they don't have another Shang-Chi, so right now we are sitting in a pretty decent spot. They could have a Magneto, which would pull our Venoms over, which that would be the potential low roll that we could get. All right, so we are gonna fill the rest of the space with our Death, our Deadpool, our Killmonger, our Bucky Barnes. What a massive unit this man is! Gosh dang, he just regenerates forever. So they do play one card over into the Onslaught Citadel. I'm curious what it is they're playing, because we pushed more power into Limbo, thinking they might do something. The Magneto cannot pull our Venom because we fill up the space. I thought we were going to lose for a second, but I realized we had a massive amount of power. What is this game? Not only did Murder World help us out by destroying the Wolverine, but their Shang-Chi did as well, which is something that I kind of didn't really think about, is that Wolverine, if he gets big enough, he's just going to dodge the Shang-Chi's basically. He'll get pushed into another lane, which comes down to RNG, but at least he's on the board. At least those stats are still there. Beautiful, beautiful game. Beautiful first game. We will take it. It did not require a massive Deadpool high roll, but it did require a pretty massive Wolverine high roll. Let's go ahead and take those 2 cubes and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Play a Boss. And the first location is Monster Metropolis. Doesn't necessarily hurt us or help us any. We are going to go ahead and start off by playing our Nova. If they have an armor, maybe they block it in. But maybe that also saves us from dropping our destruction tools there when we shouldn't, or when we may not necessarily need to. I'm kind of torn. We are going to gamble here. We're going to hope that they don't have armor. If they do, we probably retreat. But we do get the payoff. They don't drop armor. We are going to the... Oh, Weird World is not great for us. We have some pretty decent cards up to this point, but it's overall not great. We're going to use our Deathlock onto the Nova and Deadpool. That's going to start snowballing the Deadpool. On turn 4, we'll be able to do Deadpool and Carnage here. Be able to clear it up. On turn 5, we could do Deadpool and Venom. And then we're going to have to rely on whatever resources they gave us. And so we do get the initial snowball. I almost want to snap, depending on what they play. We've got their Storm, so it looks like a Silver Surfer deck. So we actually aren't going to get as big of a Carnage, but that should be okay. Looks like a Silver Surfer deck, and depending on what resources they have, it could be fine, it might be really bad. I'm going to go ahead and play both Deadpool and Iceman. We're going to disrupt their curve just a little bit, and then we will be able to still do the Venom on turn 5. That's the playline we want to go with. So they go with a Mr. Fantastic, which pushes power to the left and right. I'm still going to go into this match with the assumption that they have the Silver Surfer. And so we are going to destroy our Deadpool one more time. That should bring him to 16, I think, which is kind of crazy. The 16 power Deadpool. We're going to have a massive Venom in the Monster Metropolis lane, and then we'll have the resource of Deadpool to throw onto the board pretty much wherever. And they've already dropped their Killmonger, so it shouldn't be an issue. They do get to drop our Death for almost free because of how much we push there. So they are close to competing with us in Monster Metropolis because of the Death. They could have our She-Hulk, maybe. They could have Arnim Zola, which would push 12 here and 12 here, which would bring this to 23. I'm actually going to play our Scorpion into middle just in case, because 16 and 6 is going to be 22. They would beat us by 1 if they pushed their Death over here with an Arnim Zola. And so we're going to go use Scorpion in mid just to pad that stat. No, so they do go with a double drop. Oh, a double drop in Savage Land pushes us over to the left. So depending on what they drop, it's very silly playline play a boss. I'm not sure. Like no matter what, we had some really strong power plays on that last turn. So I respect the sticking it out. But we will take our Deadpool path this game. Last game we had the Wolverine, this game we had the Deadpool. This game we may not have either one, but we will take the win. Go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Foot Punch. The first location is Muir Island, which is beautiful since we do have Deadpool in our opening hand. Sometimes Deadpool hides at the bottom of your deck. Other times he's right there ready to go. So we are going to start snowballing our Deadpool very, very early here. And so I'm actually going to take one additional turn to let him go up to 3 before we drop our Carnage. That way I can do Carnage on 3, on 4 we can do both Deadpool and Killmonger, and just really start snowballing him. So they do a cable, not an armor. The armor is really the only thing that we were worried about there. And so our Deadpool is 3. That starts with a really high snowball. The last location is Tinker's Workshop. I'm going to use Deathlock here. I know that our Carnage would end up being 6 power, which is going to be more than the Deathlock, but since it costs just a little bit more, I want to conserve it just in case I need to squeeze as much onto the board as possible in one turn. I want to be able to do that. So if on turn 5 I need to do Deadpool, Wolverine, and Carnage, I'll be able to do that, whereas it's a little bit tougher with the Deathlock. So they use a Yondu, which destroys our wave. They flip into America Chavez, which is not, I mean, it's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. And so our Deadpool is already 6. He's going to bump up to 7. He's going to bump back into our hand at 14. And then we can actually kill him one more time here and bring him up to 28. Because we're going to be able to do him plus Killmonger on turn 5. And then turn 6, we'll just be able to do whatever it is. So they play an Electro, they rotate out into a Doctor Doom, which is a great rotation, and a ramp, so they don't have the downside from that card. And so overall, very decent play. It gives them plenty of value on the board. But we do have this just massive Deadpool that is just here looming. Let's try to win the Muir Island location. We're going to play Deadpool. We're going to play Killmonger. That's going to bounce him back into our hand at 28. They use our Wolverine, which they stole with the cable. They play a Shuri and rotate it out into a Black Bolt, which discards our Arnim Zola, which is okay. That's not the play line or play path we were going to go with. Luckily they had initiative and didn't make us discard our Deadpool. That would have been tragic. I would have been so incredibly sad had we discarded our Deadpool after making him a massive 28 without any kind of enablers like owning VATS or anything similar. And so we're going to play our Deadpool. I'm also going to play Death into the machine, into Washington, D.C. That way, if they do have a Shang-Chi and they take out these cards, this one should be safe, this one should be safe. And I think we should be a-okay. Now, if they have an Arrow, that's going to be a tough matchup. A Magneto, I don't think does it either. Because we have the 12 power from our Death coming down in Washington, D.C. So they move most of our cards out of Muir Island, but we're able to maintain the win. What a beautiful Deadpool there. And that is what I like about this version. Some versions of Deadpool, that is really the only playline, that plus Death. This has the standard Death Wave playline. This has the Deadpool playline, the Wolverine playline, the Venom into Arnim Zola playline. It just becomes a lot more flexible, and that is where I find that most deck lists gain a lot of consistency, is having multiple outs, multiple play paths. So we'll take those cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Random Box, and the first location is Nova Roma. We do have our Nova, which we're going to throw into Nova Roma. If we have both Nova and Deadpool in our starting hand, we like to throw Nova first. That way, Deadpool is going to, the first time he bounces back into our hand, he is a 4 power card. And so I know some people run a Hulkbuster instead of maybe like a Nova, but I like Nova just for the cheap destruction card and for the very early enabler of your Deadpool. We're going to go ahead and do our Deathlock here, and we have initiative, so even if they have an armor, we don't have to worry about it. We're going to start enabling our Deadpool very, very early. He is now a 4 power resource that is already back in our hand. They do have Zabu, but we have a decent play here. If we were able to destroy one extra card, then we'd actually be able to do Death, She-Hulk, and one additional card after dropping our wave on turn 5, but we're not going to be able to do that. There's no feasible, plausible way to do it, and so had they had initiative, we would have destroyed their Quinjet, and that would have been beautiful. But unfortunately, we didn't. They do have Daredevil here, so they'll be able to lock down. I don't know what they're going to do. We're going to play Deadpool into the Lechugia, and we're going to drop our wave. That's going to allow us to do our Death and one additional card here. Maybe we do Death and She-Hulk. We could do Death and Arnim Zola, maybe. Maybe we should have left Lechugia open. but we wanted to protect ourselves from a potential Professor X lock. So now if they do Professor X lock, the only location they can do it in is the sewer system, and that gives us a pretty good tempo advantage in Nova and the Lechugia. So they play a Spider-Man lock in Nova Roma. They copy it. No, they play a Sunspot into the Lechugia. Very interesting. We drop our wave over in Nova Roma, which they knew that was coming. I am not entirely sure where they play or what they play. I assume they play something over here. I'm hoping it's less than 8 power. Maybe it's just something kind of small or pity. And then we're going to push our 8 power Deadpool here and here. We're going to push our death into the middle location so that if they want to win, they're going to have to swing 2 of these locations and invest resources into 2 of them. Now, we do have initiative here, which kind of stinks. So any kind of Shang-Chi plays won't be great, but I think that's okay. We throw the Deadpool to the left. Ooh, they use a leader, which destroys their Sunspot, which gives us the win, the lead. No, it doesn't. Oh, no. But we, even with them pushing their Sunspot over to the right, with us moving our Deadpool over to the right, we actually win the far left and the far right location. I was not expecting the leader play. I know that we did a build with a leader recently, but I was not expecting the leader play there, and we just barely made it out with our lives. Without the Arnim Zola, there was no way that we were going to win that one. And my gosh, that is a lot of rocks. It took over part of our face. We're going to take the 2 cubes. Let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Bebe HC. The first location is the Avengers compound. We have our Nova in our starting hand. We have our Wolverine, and then we have our Carnage to start destroying the Wolverine over and over and over again. The bad thing about Wolverine, the downside about Wolverine, is that he could potentially randomly bounce into, I don't know, Bar with No Name. He could randomly potentially bounce into, I don't know, Space Throne. So, take him with a grain of salt. He can be great, but there are other times where he's just a big liability. We are going to go ahead and play him. We're going to do this thing. We're going to do it. We're going to destroy him. We're going to play the Carnage. It's going to destroy the Nova and the Wolverine, and he will bounce wherever he pleases. That may be Bar with No Name, that may be in Machine World, that may be back in Avengers Compound. We don't know. We are hoping it's not Bar with No Name, but unfortunately it is. We could always save Arnim Zola to destroy the Wolverine on the last turn. If we draw into him, we'd have to draw into him first. I'm going to play the Deathlock into Machine World, and they play White Queen, so they copy our death. And so if we end up destroying additional cards, if we end up playing Wave or wanting to play our death, we have to remember that they can do the same. So they can see what we're going to play here. I'm just going to throw She-Hulk into the Avengers compound lane and hope that we can still find a way to win. With them having Angela and Daredevil and White Queen, maybe they're going with more of an old school build. It's a Devil Dino like a lockdown, so it runs Professor X. So if they have a Gamora, they can guarantee trigger it. They have the Arrow, which doesn't do them as much good. It would have been cool playline to use Arrow into Bar with No Name on the last turn. But since we're losing it already anyway, beautiful. Since we're losing it already anyways, they didn't necessarily mind wasting the resource. I'm going to use Arnim Zola. We will push a Wolverine to the left and to the right, and the middle Wolverine will actually bounce somewhere random. So we have a 33% chance of just losing, or a 66% chance of having a chance. We will take that. That is better than the guaranteed death that we had a second ago. We are going to destroy our Wolverine, bounce him. We're going to hope for the best. That'll work. We will take those. That should give us enough of a lead in the Avengers compound lane that the Machine World win is not enough for them. Sometimes you have to play to your outs. Not only did we get a phenomenal top deck, a 1 out of 4, so 25% chance of drawing into Arnim Zola when we needed him, but we got the 66% chance flip of Wolverine going into the right lane. We will take those. With that one, we are going to go ahead and end the video. I don't think we're going to get any better than that here. We didn't get any massive Venom plays. We didn't get any like crazy Venom into Arnim Zola or any kind of similar play lines, but we were still able to find a lot of wins very consistently. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. I think that Wolverine definitely has a spot in this style of just build because our aim is to be destroying cards every turn anyways, and so sometimes he's just going to be our win enabler. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. And as always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.